Hey, how's it going everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula, and welcome to another Pokemon GO discussion video. So, recently Niantic has been pushing for a lot of different changes to Pokemon GO, most of which are actually rollbacks of pandemic bonuses, and a lot of players have been really unhappy with these changes. Now, I really think Niantic's approach to these changes has been completely wrong. I want to talk about what Niantic should be doing when it comes to Pokemon GO, and I really do think that if we keep this discussion up, it's going to make the game a lot better for everyone. So yeah, with that said, let's roll the intro and jump right into it. Okay, so let's get right into it. So, Niantic has been rolling back a lot of changes that they made during the pandemic, and a lot of these changes were some things that players were getting used to. They were mostly quality of life changes that allowed you to play from home, and in other cases, they actually made the gameplay a lot better. But because Niantic wants Pokemon GO to go back to how it was before, they have been slowly changing these pandemic bonuses back so that they are no longer available. And this has frustrated players tremendously, mainly because a lot of players, like I said, have been getting used to these changes, and for some players, they started playing the game during the pandemic, so for them, they only know these pandemic bonuses as being part of the game. Some of the pandemic bonuses that were recently rolled back include incense spawn rates. This was nerfed down pretty heavily so that instead of having a spawn every 1 minute, you're going to have one spawn every 5 minutes. And this drastically reduced the value of incense. Before these changes were rolled back, incense was actually something that was useful, especially during community days where most players may not necessarily be able to play the whole duration. The fact that you were able to get one spawn every 1 minute allowed you to keep up with other players who were able to grind harder. Now, of course, this is something that a lot of players are not necessarily realizing, but the spawn rate is going to be one spawn per minute if you are actively moving. But of course, a lot of players, if they are using incense, are probably not actually out and about playing the game. Incense has always been one of those tools that really helps you if you are stationary, but of course, because Niantic is rolling back this change, it's kind of counterintuitive to how players have been actually using it. Now, another change that has gotten a lot of players ruffled is, of course, the reduced duration of community days. During the pandemic, they made community days last for 6 hours, and this was actually very convenient for a lot of players. First and foremost, not everyone can play the duration that Niantic typically sets, so having it for 6 hours meant that it was pretty flexible. Let's say you are working on a Saturday and you are not able to play during the 11 to 2 o'clock period, then you could just play after work and you should still have a good community day experience. But because Niantic is rolling it back to 3 hours, that means not everyone is going to be able to enjoy Community Day. Whereas before, when it was 6 hours, it was something that a lot more players could enjoy. And then finally, this is the most recent change. They are nerfing the cost of remote raid passes. So beforehand, you could get 3 remote raid passes for 250 Pokecoins, but now it's going to cost 300, meaning it's going to be 100 Pokecoins each. I've already spoke at length about this particular change and why I think it's not favorable, but to put it simply, it's going to be really expensive for you to raid from home. Niantic also removed the 1 remote raid pass that you would get from the weekly bundle, which would only cost 1 Pokecoin. Thus, a lot of players were very frustrated that Niantic was essentially trying to push players away from raiding remotely. Now, there's plenty of other pandemic bonuses that Niantic rolled back, and there's likely going to be more that they're going to roll back in the future. But the big issue that I'm finding is that Niantic is approaching these changes very poorly. I really think that what Niantic should realize is that a lot of players have been enjoying these bonuses for a long time. It's kind of become part of the game for a lot of players, and for them to kind of roll it back, it's going to be extremely jarring and it's going to make the game feel a lot less enjoyable. Therefore, as a form of constructive criticism, I really think Niantic needs to understand that they are kind of out of touch with the Pokemon GO community. It seems like a lot of players have been voicing their concerns regarding some of these changes, but a lot of those have been falling on deaf ears. I do think that the Pokemon Go community's voice is very important. Not only are we the paying customers of their game, but also we play the game on a daily basis, so it seems like we would have a much better sense of what is enjoyable about the game and what is actually not. If Niantic is choosing to be stubborn regarding some of these changes, then what they should do is try to balance it out by adding some things to kind of compensate for what they're taking away. A notable example of this would be in regards to the incense spawn rate. If they're going to reduce the spawn rate, then make the quality of each incense spawn be a lot better. One thing that I could suggest is making every incense spawn have a higher IV floor, or maybe they can increase the shiny rate of every single incense spawn. That way, when players are spending their Pokecoins buying incense, they could still get a sense of value from using that item. Since the spawn rate is going to be so much lower and you're going to get a lot less Pokemon spawns per incense, then at least make each incense spawn be worthwhile. Now, in regards to the reduced community day duration, then what they should do is have a permanent boost to the incense spawn rate during every community day, so that players can get more Pokemon spawns during the shorter duration. And I also think it would be really helpful if they boosted the shiny rate even more, so that way if players can still get a good amount of shinies even though they're not able to play as much as before. And Niantic already started doing this, at least for the last 2 community days after the reduced duration, but they should just increase the number of bonuses during community day so that players who are able to play during that community day are able to enjoy a lot more within the shorter duration. But of course, even these suggestions are not addressing the problem that people had with the rollback of this change, and that is of course the flexibility behind a longer community day. But there are plenty of creative solutions that Niantic could implement that could remedy this. Like for example, this has been suggested quite often, but they could have different segments of community day throughout the day, and you could choose which segment you will want to play. Like let's say they could block off like 11 to 2 o'clock, or 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, or 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and then you as a player will have the option to pick one of these segments for your community day. That way they could keep the duration to 3 hours, but they could make it a lot more flexible. Who knows what they could do, but I really do think they need to address some of these issues that a lot of players have been bringing up. And then finally, in regards to remote raid passes, I think this one's going to be a little bit tricky because of course it's going to be around cost. If you want to raid remotely, then what they should do is make it worthwhile if you are choosing to spend the extra coin in order to remote raid. Of course, there's already the convenience factor of it, but I do think that Niantic should boost up the rewards just a little bit, or maybe they could make it cheaper and then have the rewards be substantially less. I really do not know how they could balance it, but as of right now, having them cost just a little bit more compared to regular raid passes is not going to give them the result that they are looking for. I've said this so many times on my YouTube channel, but the best way to get players to go out and explore and play outdoors is to increase the incentives for doing so rather than taking away the incentives for not doing so. And it boggles my mind because they were already kind of leaning into this strategy, but for some reason they've been kind of going about it the wrong way. Like for example, adding Rare Candy XL to in-person raids. I thought that was a really good design decision to encourage players to raid in person. So, basically speaking, I really feel like Niantic needs to understand that players really want these particular pandemic bonuses to remain in the game, and it's become kind of the norm for Pokemon Go. For Niantic to remove these bonuses because they want the game to go back to how it was, just goes to show just how out of touch they are with the Pokemon Go community and what they are looking for. Ultimately, it's all about quality of life. The game has improved drastically with the introduction of these temporary bonuses, and Niantic has failed to realize that. But if Niantic is set in their ways and they want the game to go back to being fully about exploration and outdoor play, then they really need to soften the blow of losing these bonuses. Like all the things that I suggested in this video, what they should really do is try to find a good balance. If they're going to remove certain bonuses, then they should add certain bonuses to kind of compensate for it. I think it's going to be as simple as that, and it's something that Niantic should explore, especially moving forward with additional updates. And in the meantime, all of us in the Pokemon Go community have the responsibility of constantly voicing our opinions regarding Niantic's changes. I think because Niantic is making an attempt to communicate with their players, then what they really need to understand that it is a two-way communication. it's not just a matter of them explaining their design decisions, but what they really should do is be open-minded to what the community is suggesting. And if the community is making good suggestions, then they should listen to it and consider implementing those changes. I really do think Niantic is in a place where they're kind of in a crossroads. Like, there is a lot of positive things that could happen for Pokemon Go, but it could also go in a very negative direction. So hopefully Niantic is very cognizant of what the community wants, and they are having internal discussions on how they can come to a middle ground. But in any case, yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Leave your thoughts and comments down below so that we could have a great discussion. And if it's your first time to my YouTube channel, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and that little bell so you stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, then do consider checking out the links in the description below. But yeah, that's it. I'm Count Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.